The political hangover that goes on and on and on. National's front bench forced to the back row today to seek clarity from their minister who...
Yeah, this is really embarrassing because National front bench didn't know what the story was, and at least 2 times during the session they had to, Chris Bishop had to get up out of his seat and go and check if what they were saying in the front row was accurate or not. Pretty embarrassing, especially when we always hear about Prime Ministers having a no surprises policy. They were getting surprises in the chamber from just a few rows behind them.
Misbehaved at a winery.
If someone declines an offer of an alcoholic drink, is it acceptable for a government minister to return to their worksite 2 further times to harass them into changing their mind?
As I said to the member yesterday, and as I say again today, there is nothing that is acceptable about that behaviour.
Andrew Bailey admits he called a Blenheim winery worker a loser, but denies he told him to F off. The worker thought Bailey had been drinking. Yesterday, the minister told the House that wasn't the case, but at 10 p.m. last night, made this explanation.
For the avoidance of any doubt, after the incident and at the end of the day, I had a small wine tasting.
A small wine tasting raising...
So he has said after the incident. That's what that claim is. The claim gets a bit muddier through the day, though.
Big questions today.
When asked in Parliament whether he had been drinking, he lied about it, came down in the darkness of night to correct that answer when no one was watching.
Was he misleading the public during the day?
No, not at all. He's just making...
Yes. No, sorry, Christopher. Like, sometimes our bias shows through and we're a bit unfair to you, but the answer to this one is yes, because he had to change his answer. If you don't say yes, you look a fool.
Answer when no one was watching.
Was he misleading the public during the day?
No, not at all. He's just making sure, out of an abundance of caution, that he's being very clear for the avoidance of any doubt.
The question is when exactly Bailey began drinking.
Yeah.
Had he had any alcohol before he talked with the worker on the 3rd of October, first, second, third or subsequent time?
I had not had any alcohol that day prior to the incident with the individual concerned.
Okay, that's a little bit unclear. The incident is a singular event. Then you came back. So the incident would be the singular event. So see there, he's still not kind of nailing it down as clearly as we'd like.
Concerned.
The second interaction, he talked about going for a drink and inviting the complainant to come with him for that. He admits that he had alcohol after the interaction with the individual.
Labor says that's a contradiction.
So we had the Prime Minister saying that Andrew Bailey was drinking between his interactions with the worker, and Andrew Bailey saying that never happened.
You invited him to the cellar door for a drink and he said no.
Yeah, that's correct. But
So
I
you were
had
drinking
not,
there?
No, I wasn't drinking. I had not had a drink prior to those interactions with the individual.
Chris Bishop was forced not once but twice to check with Bailey that National had its story straight. The whole House chaotic.
Yikes.
What he got here is a fishing expedition at a great cost to the members and the ministers.
I'm sorry, if anyone knows the history of Winston Peters, he should never use a fishing expedition as an example in the House after how he has held up New Zealand a couple of times by going fishing rather than talking to potential colleagues and coalition partners.
At a great cost to the members and the minister's privacy.
This is not a court. This is not a court. And this is not there is not a prosecution here.
The court of public opinion having its say.
Not too flash as a politician.
I think it's a storm in a teacup.
Well, I don't think it was very good for an MP. It was a bit arrogant.
Ridiculous that he did that.
Why should Andrew Bailey still hold on to his portfolio?
He's a hard-working minister doing a very good job.
Frankly, Andrew Bailey shouldn't still be a minister. His behaviour is totally unacceptable.
Unacceptable behaviour under the spotlight.
And you've learned more.
Now, listen, we don't normally stick with the commentary after by the journalists, but Mikey here has more about the actual complainant, so we'll have a listen to that as well.
Details about the worker, Mikey. What can you tell us?
Well, that's right. One News reached out to the worker at the centre of all of this, and through a support person, we were told that they are unable to do any media interviews, but that understandably they are very upset and very devastated by what has taken place. One News has also seen the full letter of complaint, the unredacted version, in which the worker states that he is a former member of the New Zealand Defence Force, and in the letter of complaint he says, and I quote, "I did not dedicate 5 years of my life to the NZDF only to be belittled by an ambassador of the very government I served." He goes on to say that I have been part of the repatriation of fallen soldiers being brought back from South Korea. I have been a part of and led cultural ceremonies for the royal family's visits to New Zealand and other dignitaries, all of which require a form of etiquette severely lacking in Andrew Bailey. Now, for Christopher Luxon, all of this is simply a distraction from what the government would rather be talking about. This is the fourth day now that the Prime Minister in particular has had to front on questions due to one of his ministers' behaviour. And quite frankly, what we saw taking place in the House there was nothing short of messy. All of those questions should have been sorted out, and between the National Party before they even got to question time, they should have had that story down pat by the time they walked in to the House. Now look, tomorrow Andrew Bailey and both the Prime Minister will be hoping they have put this issue to bed and that they're not having to answer any more questions on this very messy issue.
Kia ora,
There you go. So, yeah, people in the chat saying this just gets worse. I mean, it does, because they're letting it. I mean, remember Luxon, we played the audio last night. You know, he should be talking about Michael Woodhouse and other Labour Party ministers. He should have been gone tonight. Like, this wouldn't have been messy like this if Luxon had have abided by his own standards that he was holding Labour to, Chewy.
Again, this was Luxon's opportunity to look at what he had in front of him and what political capital he had to spend. Now, he's been terrible at recognizing what political capital is. He wants to position himself as a strong and decisive leader that's in control of his team in ways that Labour never were. Here was his chance to show that decisiveness and cut loose a fucking albatross around his neck for 4 days. I think if anyone, like, as soon as the story came out that it was at a winery and the minister was saying that he wasn't drinking, I think any right-thinking person would go, bullshit.